And we're on.
Hello, welcome. This is Access Astrology. We are three astrologers who get together every week and talk about what's going on in the sky and how that's reflected around us on the earth, in all things earth, and among the people of the earth. And there's always something going on. My name is Mark Wolz. I'm in New York. Heather
This is Heather
where?
Roan Robbins from Montana. And we
And
hope
Anne
that
Ortelee
Anne
will be joining. Yeah,
Right.
she should be
Yeah.
on her way. Okay.
So tonight's the eclipse.
Yeah.
I'm going to pull that up. And it is going to be an interesting one because that eclipse squares Uranus. Now, I did an astrocartography map, which I somehow can't figure out how to get on the screen, but I did an astrocartography map for the eclipse, and it had Pluto right on the IC through the Tibetan highlands, through that line between Tibet and China where the earthquake, where the flood happened.
Glacier. Yeah.
Yeah. Sounded like it was, earthquake and glacier melt and all these things that happened at once.
Yeah.
So how do we not feel flooded ourselves in this process?
Yeah.
Now, are you feeling this eclipse anywhere? Yeah, it does. Are you feeling this eclipse anywhere in your chart, Mark?
Not strongly.
Yeah.
So
it is.
I guess I'm a bystander.
It's right on my Mars and my tail twitches. And here is our Anne Ortelee.
And been having eclipse experiences all day, so I'm a little late for everything today. All good. Sometimes that's what you have to do. You're a little late for everything.
Was there a hitting anywhere in particular in your chart?
my whole chart. I have Mercury at 4, Venus at 4, Saturn at 6, Moon at 6, Mars at 7, midheaven at 5. Yeah.
And the fact that you're walking and talking prove that it is not always that terrible to have an eclipse, right?
No,
but yes, it's right on my Mars, and so I've been tail twitching. Luckily, I know better than to believe that inner bitch that can go when my Mars is set off. I can just I see you.
I see you can't go away. You can't. No, stop. Yeah, no. For me, it's also I was supposed to take this week off, right? And of course, as astrologers, we pull in clients that match our charts. So I have a lot of people with 4, 5, 6, right?
Right.
All of their lives are blowing up. So they're all like, could I have an emergency appointment? Could I have an emergency? I'm like, I was taking this week off because I have stuff I need to do. And Rose writes, goes, Anne, I said, let me know who it is and I'll pull her chart and see how bad it looks. It sounds horrible, but I'm like, I wanted the week off. I usually, because I just did a week in Lilydale, which was a lot of fun, but it was a lot of people and it was a lot of work. And it was, I can do my Aquarius rising, but then my little Pisces moon wants to come home and hide in the shower. So yesterday I was in the shower and I was just in there. And then I went, I got an appointment. So I run and get on the appointment with my client. I said, as you can see, I'm a little late. You can see how wet my hair is. I just got out of the shower because I got in there and I wasn't leaving, so yeah.
Right. I understand that. Yeah. And we're getting ready to go to the big astrology conference next week. More peopling.
Yeah, more people.
I'm glad it's not this week.
Me too.
So yes.
Yeah.
And people talk about how we're getting comments about how heavy the energy's been lately.
Yes.
And tonight there's a lot of shift and upheaval. But eclipses tend to do that. The time between eclipses, it's not like necessarily terrible tragedies, though. What happened in the Himalayas, where on the astrocartography map for the eclipse, it's Pluto on the IC right through that area.
Mm-hmm. Really?
Wow. Yeah, and but the rest of it, that there's just a lot of endings and beginnings.
Yeah.
And not always, but usually the people that leave between those eclipses, between any eclipse, but this one feels particularly strong, are, it was time, they were ready.
They were ready.
Or they, they were graced with not having a long, tenacious illness. and
They
went
were
fairly
ready.
quickly.
They were ready, but they might have felt like they were repacking their suitcase over and over.
Right.
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 Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So we our love to all the people that are leaving this week, and so I gather the Larry Dawsey, the doctor left, but he was in his hitting 90, and Tim Curry and Wood and Dolly Parton left before we had a sense of what a mess they are. So I feel good that it felt like there is something about the grace of this time for them also.
Yeah.
Well, it was, that day when they left, it actually had a lot of quintiles, which are
Yep.
fifth harmonic. So fifth harmonics are, I've done my work, I've completed it, I'm ready for this whole new chapter, this whole new thing to begin. And I've, it's dividing the astrology chart by 5. I've completed my work. It's a Venusian energy, right?
Mhm.
So it's got
Mhm.
a lot
Mhm.
of nice energy with, with it's got a lot of nice energy to take off on. And a lot of people do, your death chart is your incoming new stuff. So
Lifetime.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So yeah.
Well, that gives them grace on that.
Mm-hmm.
What so often when I'm looking at someone or a family constellation and somebody's got a long-term illness or they've been dealing, and we wondering are they? I often see their chart looks liberated. It's everybody else in the family who looks sad.
Yeah.
And there's a sense of, and you can't say, oh, it's are they finally recovered, it all got better, or they died. It can often look the very same thing,
Right.
because it's who around them feels it. So
Right.
I like that. It gives me reassurance about that time.
Mm-hmm.
Now we got some lovely comments from people. One seems asks about how this lunar eclipse on their ascendant. I think in general, how do we handle the eclipse season? What would you're feeling it heavily, and Mark, you say you're a bystander. I'm noticing where the energy is because it kind of acts like I always describe it as astrological acupuncture. It puts
Yes.
energy right on a place in your chart, but
Mm-hmm.
if you're not stuck there, nothing particular necessarily has to happen.
Right.
But
Right.
it can also give us energy. Acupuncture is a healing treatment. How would you suggest that they work with this, Anne?
I think of it as a giant boil, frankly. And you've got you know how like when you pick your pimples
Uh,
are they're big, they're
yeah.
juicy, and you just and it pushes the stuff. And, I always go watch Dr. Kim, the pimple popper, because I think it's helpful that's what is really happening. We're having this pimple popping energy that's very intense,
A
and
boil is coming out. Yeah.
and all that stuff's coming out, and it's good, but it can be messy. It can be emotional. I mean, everybody I know is sobbing over Dolly Parton, which me
Yeah.
too. Um,
Because it was
uh,
right near her moon.
right near her moon and her ascendant. She's a double Virgo, right? And of course, her husband died on the new moon that happened 18 months ago.
Yes.
So with that lunar phase cycle, there's a thing called a metonic Saros cycle. Saros is eclipses. Metonic is the moon. Every 19 years, the moon's at the same degree, and it forms a conjunction. And then 9 months later, like if you have sex, there's a meme on if you have sex on Valentine's Day, you'll have a baby that's a Scorpio. 9.5 months later, the moon is at the same degree, but it's a square. So last year in Sag time, she said, I'm canceling my programs. I have to stay home and get better. And then now the full moon, she leaves. So it's tied to when Carl left too, her husband, because he passed in March of 25. And they were married like 58 years. So yeah. So I kind of think of that, but it's the full moon phase. So think back to what you were doing in March of 25 when we had this new moon energy at 4, and then there was an opening which would have been Sag, would have been the end of November of last year, and now we're having the culmination of it. So it's big. But I always, Dr. Kim, the pimple popper, I'm like, get out there and watch her, and that's what you're doing. You're gooshing out. My astrology teacher compared it to a boil popping. And as a kid, I remember my dad talking about, when he was first in the emergency room as an intern, and this guy came in with a huge boil on the back of his neck. And
Mm-hmm.
so he punctured it, and like blood and pus and all went down this shirt. And my father was like, oh. And the guy was like, oh my God, I feel so much better. My father was like, I should have told him to take the shirt off. Like it ruptures something. It's supposed to rupture. And this one has Uranus with it, which is that's the suddenness. We watched the Nepal, thing. It was part of, I understand. I haven't really researched it because I've been a little busy, but I understand it was part of the glacier broke off and set it off, So yeah, big.
Yeah, I mean, it can be amazingly. Uh, I think that's interesting because a boil implies that there's already an infection. And so if you don't have an infection there, again, it won't matter how much you poke it, it's not necessarily going to come out. So it kind of notice where you have an infection. If you don't have an infection, you can still use this energy to look at what could be blocked there, what needs to be energized there, or what extra energy on that point can bring you.
Right.
And if for instance the eclipse is on your ascendant descendant, one of it can feel who's going to be eclipsed, you or the other person,
Right.
who's going to be um, but it can also say, how do you feel about your relationship for how you show up in the world, your visibility,
Right.
compared to how other people show up. Now, this one's square Uranus, so it's not going to let it stay. Change is required.
Yep.
But what change, and whether we feel that as a freedom, as a movement, as that Sagittarius empty corner of the T square.
Right.
And it can
It's
change
up
on
to
you.
you.
You can start out as freedom, feels like freedom, and then suddenly it doesn't. You realize you've been painted into a corner.
Tell me more about that, Mark.
Uranus is unpredictable.
Right.
So we know there will be change. We know it will be sudden. And that's about all we know. So
Okay.
we are to try to, it's likely to be, but it doesn't have to follow what we think.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, may we all use this well. And love to all the people leaving the planet. Love to all the people who have a dear one who's left the planet. And may we just kind of think of this more as a ground clearing for the next phase. What is that next phase?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So Leah here is, and she asked particularly that we wait and hold this chart while you are here, Anne.
Okay.
I'm curious about the Chiron return, transiting Jupiter conjunct to my Saturn, and the transiting Pluto squaring Scorpio planets. And she doesn't say much. I learned so much from you all. Thank you for this opportunity, which is very nice. We're so glad people learn. That's why we do it. What do you see about, I've got her tri-wheel too, but that is quite a Scorpio lineup, and she has had a fair amount. Pluto is not coming back to square that nodes again. It's coming back to 3, but I don't think it gets back to 2.
It doesn't get back to 2. Yeah.
Yeah. And with Pluto, 1 degree makes a big difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does. Yeah. We honor Pluto in that capacity. He goes, 1 degree. You're just breathing on my neck. You're not taking me out.
And that sometimes is a good, because you might find that you're doing a chapter review. You're kind of Pluto maybe whispering at you, saying, "Remember what you learned over the last 2 years while Pluto was squaring your notes."
Yeah, exactly. Now, what was her question exactly?
It wasn't just like help.
What was
what do you see?
Tell me what we see. Okay, got it.
Okay, and sometimes we get very specific questions, but here is more
I didn't hear one, and
non-specific.
I'm
Right?
like, is there a question? Is there a question?
And her progressed moon in Aries for now, so it kind of her whole chart's a little kind of feisty and going.
Yep.
But Neptune, I think, on her ascendant, and Saturn in her house, in her first house, that there's been that sort of a weird hurry up and go, or clarify but don't attitude. And can be a bit tricky. Patience is not the middle name of this chart in any case with that lineup of Scorpio.
And the Aries rising. Yeah. I mean, and the hard part is she, with no planet really in the first house being, because you're born on an eclipse, Leah, with your sun within 15 degrees of the nodes. You were born during eclipse season, right? So eclipses are always big for you, and this one was at 20, so it squared your Mercury and it squared your Mars. Plus, as a Mary,
that last solar eclipse, right?
The last solar eclipse, the one we had on the 12th. So that was in Leo, in your 5th house of creativity, on your Athena, saying, what's your plan? What's your plan? And with Saturn on your ascendant, last time he was there, was you were 98, 99. So you had Saturn come over your ascendant then, and you started a life then. And now he's come over your ascendant, but Neptune's there, so it's not a clear life. But you do have Neptune. I look at the 9th house as your incarnation point, between house 8 and 9. So we look at Neptune in your 9th house. You have to believe in what you do spiritually. You have to be inspired by it. And so right now with Saturn trining your natal Neptune this year, he's going to bring in some new inspiration. I don't think you have it yet, because you're also having Saturn opposite your Pluto, which is the World Trade Center. When the World Trade Center went down, Saturn and Pluto were opposite each other. So that's a major renovation of your life. And there would have been one in 98, 99 too, when Saturn came across there and you were 23, 24. Is that right? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So now you're having it again, 29 years later, Saturn in your first, renovating your life again. And so you want to watch for triangles. You always pull them in with the Pluto in the 7th. Make sure they're healthy. And then you want to watch for the inspiration, because your Neptune and Pluto work together. And they're in a sextile. So you have to believe in what you do. And if you don't, you can't do it. So that's the other part, is until you're clear what you believe in, just give yourself a little peace. You do have that Moon-Venus opposition, which can be a little bit just what I call scritchy, where your chart goes, well, come on, Leah, decide. And you're kind of like, I don't know what to do. And it's like, don't know what to do right now. And you also don't. You just had your Chiron return on your South Node. So there's a lot of energy with the Chiron return of really coming into consciousness of what's important for you. That happens at 4950. Coming into what's important for you in terms of your life direction. So this is a really big year. And I would wait. I would give Saturn a little time. He goes back to 7. He's going to clip your Uranus 2 more times. He hasn't gotten to any of your lights yet, your Sun, your Mercury, your Mars. He gets to them next year. But he's trining your natal Saturn in the 5th. So there's some big new creative project coming in.
Yeah, especially with Jupiter on your Saturn.
Yes, especially.
And Jupiter is exactly trining your Neptune.
Yeah.
So it feels like there's a lot saying you have to apply your spiritual practice.
Yeah.
And that you're reviewing with the Chiron return, with the stuff on the South Node, that you're applying your spiritual practice, that you're reviewing a lot of the life lessons you've learned, and need to kind of, go ahead and let that be a really productive time. Then in 7 months, when your progress moon goes into Taurus, it may kind of slow down again. But right now it's cooking. And again, remember, a lot of the lessons you're getting now, you've already been through, you already know the answer to. Use that. And you might find that there's someone who needs that information that you're putting out there. Your whole sense of identity is in metamorphosis, with Neptune going back and forth over your ascendant until next year. So enjoy that. It's unusually psychically sensitive and usually permeable, but it can also, feel so much in the world and project interesting things.
And listen to music, listen to things that transport you out of your body. I'd like you to get a regular meditation practice. Feed that series in Virgo and help ground yourself. Ground. How do you ground yourself? You have very little earth in your chart. So it's very hard for you to ground. And now all the planets are in fire and air. So you're very ungrounded. So your progressed Sun in Cap is helpful, but that you need regular ritualistic grounding, like meditating in the morning, or chanting or praying. Something physical, can be dancing, can be playing musical instruments. All those things count.
I like that.
Yeah,
I like that.
Mark, what do you see?
See how those things have inspired you, and bring them to others. There will be some younger people show up who could use some guidance, and don't be shy about doing that.
Wonderful.
Just do it from your own heart, what works for you, and let other people pick it up as they need it.
Okay, on to Missy. And Missy says, and thank you, all of that good stuff. And I believe she said yes, that worked. She said she's been studying evolutionary astrology and human design this year, and does yoga, qigong, and meditation daily. So she's
Good.
heard you. Missy, this is a new one. Missy, I love you all so much, and I've been listening for years. I'd love a reading about how to embrace some happiness. And Anne is popping in and out. I think she's got some connection issues, but I expect her to be back. And so, Mark, what do you start? See, this is Missy. We'll take a look at her progressions in a minute. Pluto's coming to oppose her Mars, and the eclipse is kind of talking to her. No, it's right on her nodes, but it's not too bad otherwise. With an Aries moon, she was a full moon baby, same sun full moon as AOC and Kamala Harris. So she's got good spunk. And
Yeah,
and what
so
do you see?
you're definitely familiar with eclipse energy, sun and moon in opposition, and you have Pluto with your sun, which it's always fun to learn how people have experienced Pluto's sun. It it signals a lot of power and an ability to deal with power, and that can be a hard teacher or an easy teacher.
And that sounds good. What did yeah. And so let's take a look at Missy's joint piece. Hopefully Anne will be back. There she is. There she is. I see her. I see her. Back on stage. There you are, honey.
I don't know why it freezes, but it freezes. So I went out. I should have said I'll be right back in, and I was. I've been here going, I'm here.
I'm sorry I missed you.
No, it's all good. It's all good. It's
Sometimes you seem to pop right back in there, and sometimes I have to bring you back on.
yeah, you had to bring me all the way back in. I went all the way out and came back in. You know.
So this is Missy. We were talking about her. How does she get some happiness? She says the eclipse is going to be right on her nodal axis.
Yeah.
But she's got a pretty lively chart to begin with.
Yep.
And full of life. But there's something about I see some soul healing that she did from that early, around 7 years when her progressed sun conjunct Pluto, and from last lifetime when her Venus conjunct Pluto before she was born, that there's a lot of healing that she's doing this lifetime. And so the feeling like the right to be happy and what happiness would look like is still something she's envisioning, but she can get there when she can pull that off. What do you see, Anne?
Well, the issue is it's not a horrible issue, Missy, but the Saturn and the Jupiter in the 7 and 8, make you always able to see something that needs to be changed or improved or made different. And so the Mars in Leo, I always think of that as Mick Jagger. I'm not satisfied. So it's kind of recognizing, your chart's going to have an expectation of what it should be, but because the Venus and the Moon because you're born on a full moon, and because Venus is in Libra, and they're all kind of hanging out with Pluto. Pluto's going to be in there and go, well, this is that, and so you have to not listen to that voice. When you get that little mean voice that goes bop bop, you want to kind of go, all right, Pluto, because your Mercury's retrograde in Scorpio now, and so you have to look at the Mercury and say, okay, give me a couple positives. This is a chart that's sensitive to criticism and sensitive to when things don't go the way you would like it to. So with the Mercury in Scorpio, especially retrograde, because it answers to the Mars in Leo, it's a lot about what your expectation is. And so, and again, I'm not saying you're going to be expectation free. You're a Capricorn rising with a very strong Saturn, but it's also looking and going, well, what was my expectation and what did they try and do? Because your chart's so Western, it only has Heather has asteroids on, but you only have the Moon in Aries over there in your first quadrant. So you get
and the whole bottom chart.
Yeah, you get offered things, and you're kind of like, well, it's not really what I wanted. And the Moon is, the Moon kind of argues with the Jupiter Saturn midpoint, which is like, well, that's not what I want. It's like, well, what would you want? So there's a movie called Nanny McPhee with Colin Firth and Emma Thompson, and you want to watch that movie because Emma Thompson teaches the kids how to say things to get what they want, as opposed to the unexpected ways things show up. And I would go back and look at when, Heather can't do it here because this doesn't go live, but I would go back and look at when your Mercury went retrograde, because it's going to be retrograde for up to 21 years, and then it's going to go direct. And you want to watch if that was when your chart kind of gave up on happiness.
By progression.
By progression. And when it goes direct, if you find, if you go, oh, this is how I become happy, because happiness is a choice.
Right. And all of that healing is something that you've been doing for a while, and kind of you have to consciously look for where the happiness is. The Aries moon, which I also have, can feel discontent all the time, and it's kind of having to choose to look for the happiness and grow that. Like, it's I have to focus on what you want to grow, and your chart is very active, so it's not happiness is not passive for you. Happiness is engaging with people, engaging with you. You also get drawn to very strong personalities with that Mars and Leo in the 7th, and breaking the habit of being drawn into, conflict or contentious relationships, but finding someone, partnering with people or organizations that like to be heroes to the world, that like to help and to save and to make the world a better place. And I think you would do really well when you feel like you're helping, you're moving into that part.
Yeah, and with Saturn on your moon this year 3 times, because it's going to go back to 7 in December and go over it again. So he's already gone over it once. He's going to hit it in a couple of weeks, actually probably next week. And then he's going to go and over it again in the spring. Moon rules your 5th house of happiness, and it also rules your 6th house of work. Mercury also rules your 5th house of happiness, and he's retrograde in Scorpio. So it's like, okay, well, what makes you happy? And then, well, this makes me happy. Well, can you do a little of that every day? And that can help. But also, the chart has an essential energy of seeing how it can improve things. But that AA quote, the wisdom to know when you can improve it or not, as opposed to looking externally for happiness rather than saying, okay, what's going on with me? And again, what we said to the person before, Saturn's back there. He's back at 98, 99. And what was going on for you then in terms of happiness or direction. And now Saturn's on your moon again, starting a new 30-year cycle. So this is big for you in terms of, what is it I want to create that makes me feel good?
Yeah.
Yeah, it can be a little tough with your chart because it does see the flaws, but it also makes you a really brilliant, creative person, an excellent writer, excellent communicator,
and with great resilience. You can bounce.
Yeah,
you can do it.
So it's like, okay, let me flip this. I'm not going to take in if people say anything mean to me. I'm not going to take it in. I'm going to, other people's opinions of me is not my business.
So one last question.
You want to always remember that you have a choice. Whether you're going to pick something up that someone else has handed to you, or whether you'll just let it drop.
And stay on target with your goals. So somebody asked if they have a mutable grand cross during the lunar eclipse, what does this mean? Now, I think they have a midheaven at 4 Sag. I think that this comes back to a point we can just do one last round on and close out. When this eclipse comes tonight, to use this to loosen things up, to free unblocked energy, to, as you said, pop that pimple, release a boil, release infections, and see what you can do with this influx of energy is what I'm seeing. Last round, and what would you think that they can do wherever they have the eclipse sitting there?
I think it's also one of the things that I find helpful with the Uranus square to it, because right after we have the eclipse, Mercury and Uranus have Moon squares Uranus and then Mercury squares it. It's like change how you think. Like give a different, okay, that's the story, write a different story. So similar to Wicked and the Wizard of Oz, where she goes, what kind of girl steals red shoes from a dead woman? And I was like, ooh, never thought of it that way. Like,
Uh,
yeah, why would you steal shoes from it? Like Dorothy stole the shoe. Well, no, Glinda gave them, but it changes your perspective, right? Suddenly the Wicked Witch isn't really wicked. She's just fighting for animal rights, and the Wizard of Oz hates her because he likes to make the animals stupid. So you get a whole different story. So flip the script with this eclipse. Go, okay, and watch for snakes in the grass, because eclipses sneak up on you. And then there's something comes in on the side and goes, whoop! So it's got a little scary energy to it, because it's the Uranus square is part of it. So it's going to go, well, you thought you were dealing with this, and then in comes the character from the side that goes, So I don't know if you saw Sheep Detectives. It's on the internet. It was in the movies and it got released. It's on. You can find it on, I think, on Prime. Very cute. Hugh Jackman, Emma Thompson. I love Emma Thompson. And it's the shepherd gets killed, and
isn't that wonderful?
The sheep solve the murder, which is very cute, because they're sheep and they have to be sheep. They can't open doors. They have to do sheep things to solve the murder. And they do. They solve the murder. They help the police detectives solve the murder. So kind of think of it as like a little twist. The eclipse has a little twist in it, and so you want to go watch the twist. Similar to Sixth Sense. They get to the end and Bruce Willis is dead. And everybody goes, and then you go back and look at all the scenes. His wife is sad because it's her anniversary dinner. She's not mad at him because he didn't show up. He's dead.
Right.
But you go, oh my, that whole thing.
That's a wonderful example of, drop your assumptions and look more carefully.
Yeah.
And Mark, what do you think is your last advice for this eclipse?
Remember, through the whole eclipse and everything it's doing in your chart, you're not alone. All of those other planets are bringing an energy into it. So make room for them, and think of it as a big audition. Nothing is firm and final, and
That's
you're
beautiful.
trying things out.
I like that. Nothing is firm and final. It's an eclipse and it's a mutable T-square, and it's shooting, in the case of the Sag rising, it's shooting right up to your career sector. So career and family, right? Big change.
So thank you, and everybody have a good night, good weekend, safe tonight. Goodbye from Montana. This is Heather Roan Robbins. And
goodbye from New York, Anne Ortelee.
And goodbye from New York, Mark Wolz.
And we'll see you next week.
Bye, everybody.